Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davis,
Present.
Mrs. Engel,
Here.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Here.
Mr. Malone,
Here.
Mr. Marshall, Mrs. McGrattan,
Here.
Mr. Sibilia,
Here.
Mr. Soms,
Here.
Mr. Washington.
Here.
8 here, 1 absent.
Okay, at this time, I'll ask if there are any residents and property owners that wish to speak. If you raise your hand, I'll call on you. Anyone? Yes. Go for it, Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Mogul. I am a resident of Ledyard at 825-827 Colonel Ledyard Highway, Ledyard, Connecticut. I'm here tonight to say I really don't think there's a necessary need for farm use regulations in Ledyard. There are certainly a bunch of them in the regs as we stand here today. If you wish to go through them, they are there. The issue is not the uses. The issue in the regulations is on page 13, number 4. Any use not listed or otherwise permitted in a district is prohibited. In other words, it's micromanaging, and that is not helping farming in Ledyard. Right now, 70% or nearly 70% of our budget is spent on education. Farming in Ledyard is hard enough without having more regulations. And use regulations are even more restrictive for new farm entries. If we don't grow farming in Ledyard, we're going to put farming out of Ledyard. And we're just become a bunch of conservatives are holding the land open for more housing projects. No, thank you. I came here to farm, as did many other people. And I think farming regulations, use regulations for farming, only limits further development of farming. We don't want to do that. That will hurt Ledyard's growth. And we don't want to hurt Ledyard's growth. Fine. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Yes, Mr. Mogul,
Yes,
you
Mr.
have been recommended by the Republican Town Committee to be on this ad hoc committee. Do you wish to stay on? Do you wish to be appointed?
I saying to my, if you're going to have a committee, I would like to be part of it. However, there's more to this than just uses that need to be modified in the zoning regulations. There are many other problems, and you can go through them. But limiting it to just uses of farming is really the problem.
Mr. Mogul, if you're going to be on the committee, you can make that recommendation to them when you meet.
No, I think it's better to be part of the committee. At least I have a vote. And frankly, I'll have my voice heard, not just sit aside and out in the corner.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Save your thoughts for the committee meetings.
I've done that. Thank you. I appreciate your thoughts, though. Thank you, Mrs. McGrattan.
Okay.
Are there any other residents or property owners that wish to speak? Mr. Woody.
Thank you. Nate Woody, 770 Long Cove Road. So with all the craziness that we have going on right now, I actually wanted to make sure that there was some acknowledgement of some of the great work that is going on in town. Liz Burdick, Director of Planning, and Steve Maslin, Director of Public Works, just finished pulling off the trifecta of grants for the town. So $1.8 million from LOTSIP to put in a safe walkway from the high school to the center of town, $130,000 from STEEP for the Ledyard Town Green, and now $1.5 million plus probably matching funds for the Ledyard senior housing. So in 1 year, the two of them have managed to pull off, $3.5–4 million worth of grants to the town. And as long as I've been here, I've never seen anything like that. And so whatever is going on with the two of them, I recommend that this council recognize that great work that's going on and make sure we do everything that we can to keep them going. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Nate. Any other residents or property owners wish to speak? Hearing
Yes.
none? Oh,
Yes.
Yes, Mrs. Schwell.
Yes. My name is Deborah Schwell, even though it shows up as Rachel Schwell because I'm using my daughter's computer here. I live at 1707 Central Groton Road. We've owned that property since 1978. We moved in to our property in 1986. What attracted us to Ledyard were two things. One was the school system, and the other thing was the zoning regulations, particularly the zoning regulations pertaining to agriculture. They were the least micromanaging of all the towns around, where once you had your 3 acres or larger, you were basically free to do what you wanted to do without the land, without excessive government encroachment. Paul Mogul stated my sentiments very succinctly and eloquently, and I agree with him, and I hope he represents my viewpoint if this commission ends up being established. I would prefer that it not be established. I don't like the direction that Ledyard is going into in this mindset that it should micromanage people whose properties meet the requirements for agricultural use.
Thank you. Any other residents or property owners? Hearing none. We have no informational items. Are there any committee, commission, board reports? Okay, comments of town councilors. Any comments? Wave your hand. Mrs. Ingalls. Whoops, you're on mute. Okay, we'll try again. We can try again. Any other counselors? Wave your hand. Okay. Review and approval of prior minutes, meeting minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the 2 meetings of November 17th.
So moved, Councilor Dombrowski.
Is there a second?
Second, Counselor Ingalls.
There you go. I'll keep yourself unmuted, and after we vote on this, I'll go back to you for your comment.
Okay, I'm trying to use the space bar for the temporary unmute, and sometimes it works and sometimes it just doesn't.
Okay. Let's see. Let's vote on the minutes. Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. McGrattan? Who says yes? Mr. Sebelia?
Yes.
Mr. Somm?
Yes.
Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingalls?
Yes.
Mr. Malone?
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Hey, Roxanne, it's John Marshall. I'm here.
Okay, John, we just voted on the minutes.
I'm going to abstain.
What? Abstain, okay. So 8 in favor, 1 abstention.
Andra, would you like to make your comments now?
I was just going to wish Counselor Washington a happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Counselor Washington. Should we sing?
No, no. Thank you, though.
There will be
Happy
no
birthday, Mike.
singing.
There'll be no singing.
Oh, I should have brought a party hat. We could have worn party hats. Whose birthday is next? The mayor's birthday is next.
Yep.
I was going to stay muted for that.
Okay, you have your communication list. I didn't send any referrals, I don't believe. Let's move on to subcommittee minutes, meeting reports. Admin, please. Mira, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me? Am
Yes.
I on? Okay. The administration committee met on December the 2nd, and we approved the recommendations from the land use committee for the appointments to the Ad Hoc Agricultural Zoning Commission meeting. And it's on the appointments are on the agenda on the town council agenda for later.
Thank you. Any questions for admin? Finance, please.
Town Council Finance Committee, this is Councilor Solms. The Finance Committee held its regular meeting last Wednesday, December 2 at 5 p.m. online. We took no action on the farm exemption ordinance since it's still with land use, and we also took no action on adjusting the Ledyard Housing Authority's pilot payments because the mayor is waiting for Connecticut Housing Finance Authority to get back to him. However, we did discuss our options for conducting this year's budget meetings with the town department heads, and we resolved that a combination of in-person and online meetings would best accommodate the needs of the people who prefer not to meet or prefer to meet in person while maintaining safety for all. At this time, it's unknown what limitations the state might impose by March, so fewer people attending in person, the better. And it's also important to acknowledge that people have varying levels of comfort with online web conferencing technology. So we're going to plan to do both in a hybrid version of past budget workshops. The documents that we're looking at will be shared using WebEx with a WebEx session displayed on the flat screen TV in the council chambers, so people in the room as well as the online audience can see. And that's where we are with that. Everything else is on the agenda for tonight. That's my report.
Thank you. Any question for finance?
In 1 mile, turn left, Village Street.
Mr. Marshall, I just muted you. I know you're calling in from your phone, which makes it difficult. But hopefully, if you need to speak and you can't unmute yourself, send me a text and we'll do it from this end. Okay, land use.
Land use met this past Monday evening, virtually. We did move forward on the tax abatement for the tax exemption for the ordinance for the tax exemption for agricultural use. We did move that on to finance. Everything else that was on our agenda is on tonight's agendas for this evening.
Thank you. Any liaison reports? Mrs. Ingalls.
Board of Education met last week. They had their annual organizational meeting and re-elected Anthony Favory as their chair. They re-elected Kate DePalma Erb as their vice chair. And on their meeting agenda, they spent a good amount of time talking about the existing pros and cons of continuing with the 4-day hybrid school model. That's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Ingalls? No. Other reports, Mr. Washington.
I think I may have missed the Community Relations Committee report.
Okay.
Just really simple. One of the things we nailed down, the meeting was held on December 3rd at 6:30. We nailed down the mission statement. We will finalize that and approve it most likely at the next meeting on the 15th. And the most important part of that was we've actually moved to the next phase for us. As you can recall, we had met with the police department to discuss as informational. Now we're preparing to do an informational with the social services, the whole breadth of social services for the most part in the town. And that's my report for the community relations committee. And the other one, I just got off a call with the diversity and inclusion committee with the school board, and they're still finalizing their mission statement. They're in the process still. They're still in the early phases of putting together what their goals and objectives are, and they hope to have another meeting in the near future to kind of solidify that. But they're moving along, and that's my report for the diversity and inclusion committee for the school board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other reports, Mr. Solms?
It's been a while, but WPCA had the last meeting November 24th, and Groton Utilities has contacted Department of Public Health regarding SQA's pressure reducing valve along the interconnection between their Ledyard division and the Gray Farms division in September. The interconnection was installed by Groton Utilities last year as part of a project to install emergency water main interconnections between all 5 SQA Ledyard divisions in the Ledyard WPCA system. The pressure reducing valve will allow Squaw to bypass the Gray Farms pump station by using water from their Ledyard division, which is currently operating only at about 20% of its capacity. The Gray Farms division needs a complete upgrade of several equipment systems to include the hydropneumatic pressure tank, and Squaw reports that they are currently awaiting approval from DPH to turn the interconnection on and close down Gray Farms pump station. DPH has sent questions to Squaw regarding their plan and how long they expect to use the interconnection for this purpose, because it's not, in my opinion, it's not exactly what it was designed for. There was no update on the removal of the Gallup Hill tank and bunker, although that project is moving along. And there was a discussion regarding an RFQ for an engineering study for sewer from Ledyard Center to the Highlands wastewater treatment plant, which continues with the meeting next week. And after conducting a public hearing with only one public comment, the WPCA approved a motion to recommend the town council approve a water rate increase of 3.5% effective January 1, 2021. The WPCA also approved an increase of 3.5% in the sewer rate to be effective at the same time the water rate becomes effective. So I expect we'll be seeing a legislative file for that. The wastewater treatment plant is reviewing a proposal to replace all the inside lights with LED bulbs to reduce their energy costs, and the WPCA will receive $5,000 from Eversource, so the net cost will be about $6,000. But since the total cost of the work is approximately $11,000, if you include the $5,000 grant from Eversource, they will be seeking other bids in keeping with the town purchasing ordinance. And that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Soms? Roxanne, can you unmute Mr. Marshall? I can't unmute for some reason. I have the power to mute, but not to unmute.
Okay, I'm not sure if you might be caller 4, so let me.
He is caller 4.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute him, but it's not allowing me to right at the moment, but I'll continue to try.
Okay.
It says request sent. I sent to be unmuted, but.
Does anybody know how to unmute yourself on your mobile phone? Any ideas? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to the, any other liaison reports?
Chairman
Yes.
Davis, I noticed that Chairman Lynch from the WPCA is here, and I wonder if he had anything that he'd like to add, especially since this rate increase is going into effect January 1st. I'm kind of looking at what our agenda is with the remaining year, and I know we're planning on canceling the next town council meeting. So we probably need to think about that a little longer.
Mr. Lynch, did you have anything you would like to add?
Just that we are absorbing this increase as of 1st of October. So every month we delay, we're cutting into whatever reserves we have.
Okay, thank you. So are you proposing that we meet Mr. Soms in December again?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to, but we also don't have a legislative file.
No, is this for the water increase, the rate increase?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's December for tonight.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Is it?
Okay.
All right. I'm sorry. I totally missed it. That's why he's here then. I'm sorry, folks.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Good.
No more questions.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the mayor's report.
All right, so I apologize for being late. We had some technical issues on this side, and we had a staff meeting this morning with about 24 attendees on WebEx too, and it was a little glitchy there too, which is somewhat fortuitous because we have made the decision to move away from WebEx and over to Zoom. So that will probably be happening. It will happen by January 4th of 2021. The Zoom platform is much more user-friendly. We actually get more licenses to have more people cover meetings and the same price. And the stability of the platform by way of security has increased dramatically. So we're going to make that move. Hopefully everybody will appreciate that. A number of people I know have have participated in Zoom meetings and Teams and everything else. And so I think it'll be a pretty seamless transition. I know I just caught the tail end of Mr. Woody's comment about the various grants that we've secured this year. We're 4 for 4 on the grants. We're kind of waiting for one more, which is a CHAFA grant that will be pigtailed into the senior housing grant. But we're waiting for the bond council for the state to meet to approve that. And once they do, that will add another $1.3 million for a 2.8 total at Kings Corner, which will basically do the entire place, including pavement, including ADA accessible concrete sidewalks and ramps as opposed to the blacktop that they are now, exterior siding of the facility, and upgrades to the community building as well. So I am going to patiently wait. I did check on them today. I'll patiently wait, but I'm hopeful of that one as well. So we will see. And along the grant line, we did hire Weston and Sampson. We did an RFP for the design work and the surveying work for the multi-use trail from Ledyard Center to the high school. Weston and Sampson was the successful bidder, as you know. So they have already commenced some of that work. So I'll keep you apprised of that as we move along. On the COVID front, since the last meeting, we actually have 5 new executive orders. I'm going to just touch on a couple of the things, and anybody that's interested can dig into it. But the governor made some changes to substitute teacher hiring. Apparently, it was so difficult. You don't even have to have a bachelor's degree at this point to become a substitute teacher. They changed the sale of alcohol at charitable events. They've resumed deadlines for Supreme and Appellate Court hearings. They've added new sports restrictions. I think the limit now is 4 or more people is not permitted. They've extended permit renewal deadlines for some specific permits. They have moved continuing education deadlines out. They've ramped up the enforcement for gatherings with some of the fines going up pretty dramatically. They've increased the weekly benefit for lost wages. There is now a remote licensing class for septic installers, and we have a number of those in town. They just recently authorized pharmacists to administer the new vaccine as that rolls out. And they have the COVID vaccine. So if it's an out-of-network provider, the COVID vaccine will be covered under an earlier executive order. So we also had an update on the COVID vaccination today. It sounds like it's going to be a while. The first batch comes next week, but that's only going to be for several thousand doses. So the first 30,000 doses that are supposed to come to Connecticut are all supposed to be for healthcare providers, which doesn't cover them all. So you can imagine that several thousand certainly won't cover many. But what they have done is they have kind of put everybody in buckets. So they're tiered as 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D. 1D is the general public, 1A is healthcare providers. So you can imagine where you fall in that. But what they are preparing government officials for, which we are in the 1C group, is March or April. So it's going to be a bit longer, which is why we need to be prepared to continue using Zoom and online platforms, because we're not there yet in terms of a comprehensive handling of the vaccine. We have right around 300 cases in town now. That's since the beginning. Our average daily rate is a bit high compared to other towns. We're right behind Groton. Let's see. So yeah, the vaccine that's coming out is really only going to cover 0.8% of the Connecticut population. So that's the 30,000 doses covers 0.8%. Had a meeting with Yale New Haven Hospital with the update from the CEO, Patrick Green. They have a 300 bed capacity. They can flex it up to 330. They have 25 hospitalized right now, which includes 4 in the ICU. So they're very confident that they can handle plenty more still. And one of the really great things to hear is that they are using steroids and remdesivir for their hospitalized patients, and that has taken hospitalizations from an average stay of 12 days down to 4 days. So that was very positive to hear. And our friends at Mohegan Sun again stepped up, understanding the need, and they have now opened a drive-through 7 days a week, a drive-through COVID testing site in one of their parking garages. I believe it's 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. 7 days a week. So that's in one of the Mohegan Sun garages, and they have signage if people were to go over there for testing. The drought formally ended, finally. That last 1.45 inches of rain we got, the very same day that we actually had to call Public Works in to plow our roads on the Ledyard side of town. Much to our surprise, but we did get a lot of rain ahead of that snow. So we're officially out of the drought, which is really great. I was appointed to the SEICHA board. That's the Southeastern Connecticut Housing Alliance. That's just something that meets quarterly. They're working on plans for affordable housing in and around Southeastern Connecticut. And I really just want to keep an ear out for what they're looking for, because one of the asks of one of the affordable housing groups is to have statewide zoning regulations as it pertains to affordable housing. That concerns me a bit, and I would imagine it would concern a number of other towns as well. So I will keep you apprised of that board when we meet too. We did sign up for a program called ClearGov. Finance Committee was made aware of it, I believe, last week. ClearGov is essentially what it's going to do. It's going to streamline not the budgeting process, but what the public sees. So it's going to make the public side of the budget much more readable, much more comprehensible. A lot of charts and graphs and percentages in terms of this is the percentage increase from last year to this year. I think it's going to be very, very helpful. It's helpful as an internal tool, but it's equally, if not more important, that the public get to understand with a fairly quick glimpse of what the budget is. And some of you will recall a public hearing or two a number of years ago at the high school where there were printouts of Munis worksheets essentially, and each of those packets that was made available to the residents was about an inch thick. And to show up for a budget hearing and receive that and try to make heads or tails of that as you walk into that room was preposterous. So we don't want that to happen again, and I think this tool will very much help us do that. So the public facing side will be exciting, and we'll get more of that soon. We also had the CCM annual conference that usually comes right around October. This year they pushed it off to December, thinking maybe things would change with COVID. Obviously it didn't. It was all virtual, and I will tell you it was not anything like what it was in the past. And I know Councilor McGrattan has attended in the past. I think they usually have it over at Foxwoods. It's always enjoyable. You always get to meet with your counterparts from the other 168 municipalities. So it was online. We did get some good education out of it, but you didn't get the camaraderie of meeting with your counterparts. The budget work is well underway. I have asked all department heads to submit their budgets a week ahead of the schedule, which is January 11th. So, and then the 2 days following that, I'm meeting with each of the department heads to go over their budgets before that moves on to finance. Again, I communicated with the governor's office regarding the executive orders, regarding the municipal budget timelines. That's something that needs to be addressed. I followed up on that again today because we are nearing a time where we're going to need an executive order or some kind of guidance in terms of public hearings, town meetings, and referendum votes. So when I hear something there, I will certainly let you know. And then the last item for you tonight is that we have received 2 free solar speed warning signs, which will be received tomorrow by the town and deployed on 2 town roads. And I'm looking forward to this. This comes from a state of Connecticut traffic safety initiative. But these solar powered signs will show the posted speed limit. It will flash up there what the driver's speed is, and it also amasses that data internally. And then the traffic safety group will collect the data from these signs and make those data sets available to us so we can see what roads are excessively speeding on. And we know that there's a number of them, Shoeville and Iron Street in particular, that are more dangerous roads. So those are roads that we need to keep an eye on, and probably Gallop Hill as well. So those signs will be out. Look for them. They're not going to take pictures of your license plate and give you tickets or anything, but we will be collecting data. So just know that. So don't go too fast. So, and that's really all I have for you tonight. I know it was a lot. It feels like we haven't met for a while, so it was a lot of stuff.
So Mayor, when somebody asks how much did these signs cost us, we can say they were free?
They cost us nothing, absolutely nothing.
Because someone will ask, so I want.
Someone will ask, and the best part is we don't even have to go get them. They're actually bringing them down to us tomorrow. So they're bringing them right to Ledyard, so we don't even have to go to Newington or anything.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for the mayor, please? Wow. Oh, Mayor, Mr. Solms.
Yeah, I just have to say I'm recalling Sharon Wadecki asking when she was on the council, where's the speed trap trailer? What are we doing with it? Why aren't we using it? So get ready for those questions, Fred.
Oh, absolutely, and you know it will elicit a number of reactions, I'm sure. But you know, we had a meeting not too long ago regarding Shoeville Road, and I did say to the person that questioned it, and I said, you know, there's nothing about profiling involved here, but I said black, white, yellow, or green. If somebody's going 60 miles an hour on Shoeville Road or Iron Street, they're going to get pulled over. So we have to be mindful of that, and we have to recognize that there's been a good number of fatalities on both of those roads. So we have tough roads.
Any other questions of the mayor? Hearing none. We have no old business. Would anyone like to amend the agenda under new business? Mr. Marshall, did you have a report? Whoops, I don't see him on. Okay.
I think he dropped off.
Yeah. Admin, would you like to make your would you like to make a motion? You're muted, Mary. There you go. Whoops. You're still muted.
Me, I did.
You're good now.
Okay. I make a motion to appoint members to the Ad Hoc Committee to develop a zoning regulation amendment for agricultural uses in the town of Ledyard in accordance with the structure outlined in the resolution establishing the Ad Hoc Committee as follows. From the Agricultural Committee Commission, 2 representatives. Allison Angelini, unaffiliated, 193 Iron Street, and Russell Holmberg, unaffiliated, 12 Orchard Lane. From the Economic Development Commission, 1 representative, Richard Taché, Republican, 143 Iron Street. From the Planning and Zoning Commission, Nathaniel Woody, Democrat, 777 Long Cove Road, and Thomas Boudreau, Republican, 135 Whalehead Road. And from the community at large, Paul Mogul, Republican, 827 Colonel Ledyard Highway. And from the town council, our own Kevin Dombrowski.
Is there a second,
Ingalls
please?
second. Second.
Mrs. Ingles seconded. Any discussion? I think we've discussed this. Yes, Mr. Washington.
Just for clarity, this is for a 6-month term?
That is correct. 6 months from the date of their organizational meeting.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Sebelia?
Yes.
Mr. Song?
Yes.
Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles?
Yes.
Mr. Malone?
Yes.
I'll try Mr. Marshall just in case he's here. And Mrs. McGrattan?
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. The next items are under finance. Mr. Soms.
I move to approve a letter of directive to the mayor and board of education for the preparation of fiscal year 2021-2022 budget as contained in the draft dated December 3, 2020.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion.
Thank you. So just several points to note from the letter. We put some time into this with help from the mayor and the finance director. We have little information about what state revenue figure is going to look like, except that it's going to be flat if we're lucky. We are continuing to accommodate mill rate increases from previous building projects now complete. Our pension contribution is up, which will increase our contribution costs slightly. Healthcare costs are expected to go up dramatically. Actually, not as much as in past years, but 5.5% over the current year, and that's $320,000 right there. Few other things, and as far as we know, COVID expenses are being reimbursed at 100%, but we also wanted to be aware and acknowledge the fact that if the economy goes into a slide as a result of continuing spikes in the pandemic, we can expect more people out of work. And Councilor Ingles also pointed out that there is the Paid Family Medical Leave Act goes into effect, so people will be seeing deductions from their paycheck to pay for that program. So for all these reasons, we're expecting to keep the budget at 0. We know that we have contractual increases, so we're asking the departments to find other ways to compensate and reduce costs to make up for the increased labor costs. And I think that sums it up.
Thank you for your work on this committee and others. Are there any questions? Hearing none, Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Song?
Yes.
Mr. Washington?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles?
Yes.
Mr. Malone?
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan?
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia?
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I move to
I
authorize
make a
the mayor enter.
Whoops.
I'm sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
Oh, that's right.
It's
We
yours.
moved on to land
Yeah, yeah.
use. Go ahead.
Sorry.
I make a motion to authorize the mayor to enter lease negotiation for 2 classrooms in the former Ledyard Center School, 740 Colonel Ledyard Highway, from landlord Ledyard Center LLC of Middlefield, Connecticut. The lease space will be for the relocation of the Ledyard Food Pantry.
Second, please.
So moved by Councilor Washington.
Okay, seconded by Councilor Washington. The reason there was a little confusion, me too, Bill, is because this was discussed by both land use and finance. Any discussion?
If you want me to add anything, I can.
Yeah, so just in a brief is that land use held a meeting and about a proposal about using a different location, moving the pantry to the Galbraith Community Center after much comment from the public opposed to doing that. The mayor elicited the decision to go discuss with the owners of the former Ledyard Center School about renting some spaces over there. That would be better for the town, keeping the food pantry within Ledyard Center, supplying the needed infrastructure for the volunteers, such as running water, restroom facilities, and having the adequate space to support the needs of the food pantry. If there's anything else, Mr. Mayor, that you'd like to add, please do.
No, I think you summed it up nicely, Kevin. I think this opportunity can be had at a very reasonable number, so it's not going to budgetarily impact us, and it does get us on a single floor in a single building with the bathrooms, and I think it will give us a good run in this location in terms of being able to sustain the program.
Any questions? Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia,
Yes.
Mr. Soms.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I make a motion to accept Bellows Drive into the town's inventory as a public street in accordance with 300 tax 025 and ordinance regulating addition of any new street or highway into the highway system to the town of Ledyard.
Is there a second, please?
Second, Councilor Washington.
Discussion?
So this is a standard action for us to do for a new road to be accepted into the town road inventory as recommended by the Public Works Director, Steve Maslin. He did mention that there were a couple of punch items that were still open, but the road was acceptable to be in a condition to be accepted into the road inventory. And as Mr. Woody had reported at our meeting as well, there are still bonds on this road as well as on the next item as well for the next road on the agenda for tonight that cover anything to do with the punch list to make sure the roads are completed in accordance with our road ordinance.
Question, Mrs. McGrattan?
Yes. Where is Bellows Drive?
This is off of Churchill Road. If you go up Churchill, you get to the crest of Churchill. It's just over the crest as you're heading down towards Thomas Road and Fanning.
Okay. Gotcha.
Any other discussion? Roxanne, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington. 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I make a motion to accept Quakertown Meadows into the town's inventory of the public street in accordance with number 300 tax 025 and ordinance regulating the addition of any new street or highway into the highway system to the town of Ledyard.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
1 second.
Motion's made and seconded. I assume it's exactly the same discussion.
It is exactly the same, and for any question, this road is off of Colonel Ledyard Highway, down what was the old Watrous property.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Roxanne, would you call the roll?
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Let's see, general item, Mr. Psalms, would you like to make this motion?
I would very much like to. I've now read the end of the agenda and I see it. I think I can get it out. I move to approve a water rate increase of 3.5% to become effective on January 1, 2021, as recommended by the WPCA and contained in the water and sewer rate table. This action is in accordance with ordinance number 400-001, an ordinance creating a water pollution control authority for the town of Ledyard.
Second, Councilman Malone.
Motion's been made and seconded. Do you have any more to add besides what your
Yeah,
previous?
only that, we only approved the water rate increase. The WPCA has the authority to increase the sewer rates. And the other thing that I didn't mention earlier is Groton's rates are going up 5%. So we are passing along our cost, or the WPCA is passing along its cost. And because they have other costs, the percentage increase is less than the 5% that Groton has imposed. I should also mention that there will be, I believe, 2 more 5% increases in the coming 2 years. And we have, the WPCA has many years ago tried to absorb water rate increases like this. This WPCA has been absorbing it, as Chairman Lynch said, since October, but you can't do that. You have to pass these increases on, otherwise you become insolvent. So I completely support this. They also did their homework. They spent a lot of time looking at their costs and readjusting their rates, trying to make this as little of an effect on the ratepayers as possible.
Thank you. Any questions? Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Sebelia,
Yes.
Mr. Psalms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Dombrowski,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Dombrowski, I'll let you make the next motion.
I make a motion to cancel the town council regular meeting of December 23rd, 2020 for the holidays.
Is there a second?
Second.
I assume there's no discussion on this one. Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Malone,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Sebelia,
Yes.
Mr. Psalms,
Merry Christmas, and yes.
Mr. Washington, Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Engel,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries, and it's fitting because in January we start the hard work of the budget, and so we get a little break before then. And with that, unless there's anything else for the good of the group, Kevin, go for it.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
This meeting is adjourned without exception. Thank you, everybody.
Merry
Thank you, everyone.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas,
Happy
everybody.
holidays all.
Merry Christmas. Good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.